Folks, thank you so much for spending the second day of the year with us. We are super excited to have Duane as our special guest on the Privacy Exchange Communities Show and Tell show. Duane is a cybersecurity leader, a risk advisor, and a privacy professional. In today's session, we're going to be talking about how security, privacy, and risk programs work together, or actually how they don't. We're also going to cover some big topics, and I'm actually very thankful for Duane for bringing this up, which is about bro culture or the in-crowd culture and how that manifests in security and things that we could take from that and bring to privacy. We're also going to be discussing what breach means, depending on your audience, and how to build bridges between privacy and security. So Duane's background is in security, but like many security professionals, he found himself getting pulled more often into the privacy world as those requirements started to bleed into security. So he pursued his CIPPE and CIPP-US certifications to help his employer bridge that gap. And he's now found himself at this amazing intersection between security, privacy, and risk. So that's what we're going to be covering today. We'll spend the first 10, 15 minutes or so in a guided Q&A between me and Duane, and then we're going to open it up to audience Q&A. And I really do hope that folks feel comfortable coming off mute and having a dialogue, which we will also turn off the recording for. Okay, so as a reminder, on every single show that we do provide the disclaimer that this is not legal advice. Duane is not a lawyer, I don't think. I'm not a lawyer, and we're not your lawyer. So if you do need legal advice, please contact your own attorney. With all of that behind us, Duane, are you ready to hop in?
Yeah, sounds like fun.
All right. So my first question to you is, can you tell us a little about your professional role today and how you got here?
Sure. So I'm the Director of Information Security for Converged Technology Solutions, which I'll mention. What I'm saying today isn't representing them necessarily, so just an additional disclaimer on the legal point, but that sort of it's a global company that does technology solutions. And part of why I got into the interest in privacy is because we acquired some businesses in Europe. And then the company kind of figured out, wow, there are regulations around this, and we have a few things that we need to do to make sure that we're, following the rules and doing this appropriately. And there were surprises along the way, and so I kind of took some initiative to do the certifications through IAP, and I found out I really enjoy this space, really drawn to the privacy space. But my background is more in technology and security, but I've been a member of EFF for many, many years, and it's been kind of near to my heart.
Wonderful. I would love to hear a little bit about those surprises. Maybe you can tell us a little bit in this next question.
Sure.
So since you sat in both disciplines, both like a cybersecurity, data security, and privacy discipline, what are the similarities that you've noticed? And if you can tell us a little bit about your experiences with this merger, this European merger, and then also we did promise in the ad for this event that you would describe what a breach means based on your
Yeah, so let
audience.
me start with that statement about breach. So I'm going to talk about like the two camps, and they're not two camps that are adversarial. There's a lot of overlap, but there's different perspectives or outcomes that they're looking for. So when you say the word breach in the security camp, I'll say first one of the things is that the advice from security officers, like when I'm talking to staff and so on, I tell them, yes, if some sort of incident arises, I want you to let us know, communicate this. But I also tell them, do not do not say to any outside party or to our legal counsel that this is a breach. Don't make that statement. Like avoid that word, basically, not because I don't want us to take accountability of it, but because basically it could potentially kind of set the timer running once somebody has declared something to be a breach. So we, from the security standpoint, the view of a breach is the data went from here with us out there. And the perspective in the privacy community is quite a bit different, which says that somebody has seen or in some capacity accessed content. So we can be as communities both very interested in protecting content. However, the security viewpoint is largely about exfiltration of data. And my belief is that the security viewpoint is outdated and is a lower standard, frankly, and that's going to change over time. But for today, if if you don't see if you're talking to if you have a security team and you're talking to them like so and so saw something they shouldn't see, and they're not freaked out, it's because you didn't tell them so and so took away, and ran out the building or whatever with something. So now and I'll also mention there's a little difference in the kind of outlook. So the security outlook tends to think of a external threat actor. Somebody's trying to do something to us, whereas the privacy viewpoint tends to be a little bit more internally. We have somehow stepped on the rake and hit ourselves. So, and these are both valid points of view, and most definitely security teams are also looking at ways of internally missteps, misconfiguration. It's there too, but just these are a little bit of different vantage points between security and privacy that I see.
I love that. I like the step on the rake analogy as well. So I'm curious, in your business today, are you recommending that the privacy teams also say incident until there's been a
Absolutely.
determination of breach? Okay, so across the board, it's an incident until someone says it's a breach.
We basically advise that the legal is authorized to define something as a breach.
Okay.
And I mean, our security team will advise whether we interpret it as such as a breach, but that word does not utter from the lips while an incident is underway.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great advice just across the board for both disciplines to align on the meaning of a word, right?
Sure.
Okay, this is a spicy question. We did talk about this. You've mentioned bro culture or insider culture in the professions from both your cybersecurity lens and your privacy lens. I'm curious if you can share your experiences and your perspectives on that with us, Duane.
Yeah, sure. And by the way, if I'm looking over, I've just got like some notes and so on to guide here. But so one of the things is like I want to talk about sort of kind of the bad and is that within the security community, like for example, it's you see it at the security conferences, it's well over 80% male. And what I've seen in the privacy field, it looks much closer to 50-50. And I think that's owing to the influence of the legal profession. I think legal profession has done an admirable job of making the profession more accessible. And this is harmful. It's a lack of diversity. It's certainly unfair, and there's a lot of gatekeeping and making people feel like they don't belong. Personally, some things that I'm involved in is with mentoring through Cybersecurity to try to change this, but I think we've got a bit of a long road ahead. These are the bad things about it. And when I talk about like bro culture, it's this inside crowd, but it's also a kind of I would say a sort of arrogance and edginess in the field. And I want to kind of explain, sort of what I mean about that. When you go to like security conferences, like sort of they're different than like what you may see at like an IAP conference or something. I mean, I'm talking about like people showing up at the conference in fursuits and a lot of piercing and tattooing and just weird kind of crowd. A lot of people that you talk to, I mean, for example, a coworker that I talked to, I found out that he had an experience with getting raided by the FBI when he was 14 years old for some illegal activity that he did. And you talk to a lot of people that were in juvenile detention for some reason. Uh, I'm not saying everybody, and I'm fairly straight-laced as they go, but in the security culture, you will find a lot of people that come from a background where they basically felt like they were nearly criminals or on the edge of criminality and came to another way of life. So there is there's a kind of edgy arrogance. Now, why am I bothering you to tell you this? Is that because I want to say that there's a little bit of there's some benefits here as well. So this boldness or arrogance has has pushed people to try to do things like having home labs, testing stuff, and being persistent to try to create exploits to test systems and to improve security. There's also like and there's sort of like a push among the community to of continuous like your credibility is to go deep. So these are some of the positive things, but it's incredibly intimidating to people because somebody who's starting out, they haven't gone deep. They don't have a story about being raided by the FBI, and that isn't a great like entry point to get into, that isn't a great way to talk to people about getting into the field. So um, so I also want to give like two examples of that edginess, which may kind of feed into the next thing we discuss a little bit. And I'm sorry, I'm not doing great with our time here, but I'll try to be brief. So,
Interesting. Keep going, Duane.
all right. So I was tasked with doing a physical security evaluation of one of our warehousing facilities. And we're all talking about, okay, we're going to review this, that, and the other. And we say, hey, it would be really great. While we're at it, let's try to break into the building. And so I tried. I came there with a fake work order, pretending to be a somebody who is going to service the printers at the place and all this stuff. And I tried to basically trick them into letting me pass the front door to service printers when I had no business being there. They had never met me in person before this time, before I was reviewing the building. I mean, I arrived an hour early. Um, this is an example. Like, who the hell would think of I'm going to my coworker's place and I'm going to try to break into the building and sneak in. Um, that's kind of an example of the security mindset arrogance. Another is we had our annual conference and by the way, I'll tell you, we cleared this with the CEO. We did an AI deep fake of the CEO sending a voice message to our sales team telling them to do some sort of task in order to basically fish them to do a training exercise to prove whether they had a kind of resilience. And we intentionally put in some things which should have triggered them to be a little suspicious to create a teachable moment. Pissed a lot of people off. I'll be frank about this, but we did get approval. So these are what I mean to say is these kind of some of the things about the bro culture, the arrogance, there are ways that you can paint outside the lines a little bit and try to create some teachable moments or do something that you haven't been exactly asked to because you're aggressively trying to improve something.
That is really fascinating. This went in a different direction, but I like where you're kind of drawing like the pulling the positive aspects out of these folks that, have a different way of seeing things. So I'm curious, like what kind of examples we could bring into like a social engineering teachable moment for privacy pros, especially when the rakes are inside the building that you're stepping on, so it's more of like colleagues or business process issues, less like, external threat actor. But you've really given me something to think about, Duane. Thank you for that. Let's ask one final question, and then we'll open it up to audience Q&A. So my last question is, And I'm sure you've noticed this, like some security professionals like just don't get privacy or they don't care and they're not motivated about it at all, or they think privacy is just a subset of security and don't understand the data collection and use aspect. Like how can you like encourage your security colleagues at your company to get more excited and be willing to work more closely with the privacy team?
Sure. So in terms of that collaboration, I believe the big problem is that your security colleagues primarily view privacy as a regulatory issue. Like, how do we make sure that we avoid getting in the crosshairs of a regulatory issue? So their perception of it is a low bar hurdle. So that's sort of framing the issue, and it's not always a low bar because sometimes it can frankly be hard to meet some of the privacy regulations. But if you're not living in it day to day, it looks like a low bar. So it's a perception issue. So starting with that. So I have two suggestions of I believe how from the privacy perspective to sort of like bring value and to, in a way, kick kick some butt on the privacy people. So one idea number one is with the use of privacy impact assessments. Um, these, if they're done really well, are a leading indicator. It's basically like early, like particularly if you're like in a company that's doing some product development, software or something, like one of the like when you do these, you're getting like an early signal into the technical integrations and the things that are happening. And the if you have a really strong culture around doing privacy impact assessments, the privacy team is early in knowing what the hell's going on at the company. Okay. And then this if you ask most security teams, their problem is they feel like they find out about stuff too late. It's like, it's already been billed, it's already been shipped, the contract is signed, and privacy probably feels that some too. But I'm just saying, if privacy impact assessments can get out in front of the ball. Now, I'll add to this is a super idea that somebody told me about related to impact assessments. That is that if you have a DEI initiative, a strong one in your organization, is to partner with the group or person running DEI. That if there is an accessibility initiative around software and tool acquisition to understand, visual, auditory, accessibility issues, to sort of pair privacy and accessibility along there and to get ahead of that. But so that's one way. Basically, signal to the security team, we're finding out about stuff early, and you should probably be interested in partnering with us. So that's idea number one, because security teams are super frustrated with being at the tail end of stuff. Um, idea number two is probably my thing that I beat the drum about is basically like if if you can present privacy as a value proposition in the business, then it radically changes how things work. So what if we were to say our value proposition is to be the most trustworthy business in some sort of aspect, like, hey, executive team, if I could get $250,000 of funding in order to like ramp up a privacy program that our marketing team would shout about from the rooftops. We're going to do things like um, yeah, we have to do data subject requests for these 6 states or something. I don't know the exact number or whatever, like this minimum amount. If we said we're going to be like awesome and we will respect your privacy and data subject requests for anybody who lives in all 50 states. I realize this is very US centric, so pardon me for that. But as an example, then all of a sudden, like you advocated for some funding to say we are going to be the brand of trust, And the privacy isn't about keeping the regulators off our back, but it's about earning the trust of our clients and our customers. All of a sudden, the security team is noticing, oh my gosh, the train is leaving the station here, and the privacy team has somebody's attention. I believe that is a key area of collaboration that they would want to get on board with. But that's my optimistic view, I will admit.
Okay, that is so fascinating about switching to being like the trendy team, where like you're the in the know crew before these reactive folks on the security team. I really like that. I hadn't thought about that trade. And I also like positioning the privacy team as the group that has more friends in the business, like marketers and the executives and even the customers, and thinking about it as like a value proposition for the business, not just a regulatory thing. And in some ways, you could say security is like that. Yes, it's very regulatory driven, but at the same time, like PCI compliance was about making sure customers trusted giving you their credit card information over the internet. So it's ultimately about the sale. You've definitely planted some thoughts in my head. So thank you so much for this enlightening interview session. We're going to turn off the recording now. If Ryan, would you please do that?